Time now for a look back at the last week in the craft beer industry. Pour a cold one and sit back for an all-new episode of Pints and Quarts, presented by Craft Beer Nation.
All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Pints and Quarts, a show presented by Craft Beer Nation. I am Matt Miller, and I am here to talk about, well, we're going to talk about a book. We're going to talk about We Make Beer. It's a book published by St.Martens Press. When did this book get published, Shawn?
That came out on September 23rd.
It came out on September 23rd, so very fresh off the press, hot off the press. And we actually have the author with us. Mr. Shawn Lewis from California is on here, and we're going to talk to him about the book. We're going to talk to him about beer, what he likes to drink, all that kind of fun stuff, and get to know him and the book a little bit. So I'm your host, Matt Miller. Got Randy Gardner Jr., Gil Mello, Charles Dunkley, Lola Larcy on here with us as well. So everybody just kind of hang in there. We're going to talk to Shawn. Shawn, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you came up with the idea for this book.
Well, I've been a beer writer since about 2006, 2007. I worked for Beer Advocate magazine as a freelancer, and I wrote the From the Source column there. And so what I did was I was basically profiling breweries from different parts of the country. And the more brewers I met, the more brewers I spoke to, the more I kind of realized that there was a lot more to their story than just the 1,200 words I was getting every month. And so that was part of the impetus. And the more I talked to brewers, the more I realized that they had a lot of stories to tell. And so that's kind of why it's called We Make Beer. I wanted to get their voices in it and make sure that it's their stories that are being told there.
Well, fantastic. And how did you, is this one of those things you wrote the book and then looked for a publisher, or did you kind of have an idea? I mean, if you're an existing writer, you probably had the contacts to start working in that direction.
Actually, I started, we had a proposal. I had a proposal I found an agent. And then from there, I had basically the introduction written and an outline of what the rest of the book would be. And from there, we went and found a publishing company.
Cool. I'm going to keep going here, but any of you guys that want to chime in with questions, this is an open platform.
It's not really a question. I was just actually very excited when I was reading your book and I saw you were in my little town of Ephrata, Pennsylvania. I was like, look at that.
Who did you visit? Who did you visit in Ephrata?
Well, it was Old Forge in Danville, Pennsylvania, right? I imagine.
You came to a few places. Stouts is just up the road from you.
Oh, okay, yes.
And you're a Spring House, right?
That's
Matt,
right.
That's what was taking you around, was Matt from the Spring House?
Yeah, outside of Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Right.
Okay, that's right. Yeah.
And Barrel Works.
That was a lot of fun. You guys have a lot of pretty good beer out there, really good beer out there. That was a good
there's
time.
like about another 5 brewers that you didn't even hit.
We had a few more on the list, and as it was going, and we were all driving ourselves as it was going, we kind of looked at each other and we're like, I don't think we should hit up too many more breweries.
Yeah,
it was going to turn quickly into some sort of criminal enterprise if we had been doing that.
Well, what was excited for me is that you hit the point, like the things that you're talking about. I could see it, and I could feel each brewery that you visit there. You really, in a 2-3 lines, you really got the grasp of those breweries, which was very nice for me.
Well, thanks. Yeah, when I was doing the Beer Advocate column, excuse me, when I was doing the Beer Advocate column, a lot of them were over the phone, and so I didn't get the chance to visit a lot of places in person. So doing research for this book, that was probably the best part, was getting a chance. A lot of these places were breweries that I had interviewed before for Beer Advocate, and so it was great to finally get the chance to go in and meet these people and see their facilities in person.
Cool. What are some of the areas, the other areas we talked about? Rural Pennsylvania. There. Where else did you get to do research for this book?
All over. It took me. I think I figured it was about a dozen states or so. But there was, Boston, Massachusetts. There was Austin, Texas. A few places out here in California, Pennsylvania, and Alabama, and Nebraska. And I'm probably missing 1 or 2 others in there as well. So I tried to get a good section of the country, and I honestly tried to avoid some of the places that might pop up in some of the more the more expected places like Bend, Oregon, places like Asheville, North Carolina, which are great beer towns, but I just felt like these are places that already have a ton of coverage, so I wanted to go somewhere a little fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that in Austin? You said you were there. Did you go to that co-op place? Was it Black Star?
Exactly. Black Star. Yeah, Black Star Co-op. Yeah, they feature kind of prominently in there, and yeah, they're really interesting. The brewer there, Jeff Young, had some really good beer, and one of the things I liked about their beer is it was right on tap next to some other great beer from Texas. They have a kind of open. Like I think they had more guest taps than they had house taps. So it was a nice challenge for the brewer that he couldn't just go out there and put whatever on because he was putting it on next to some world-class beer.
That's awesome.
I actually kind of really appreciate the guest taps like that because it allows them to change more rapidly to keep the tap line changing. So yes, it takes a while to make a beer and get it through the process and get it up there. So if they want me to come in more than once a week, keeping the tap line rolling through like that is a good way.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I liked about the book. I mean, you could basically take your book and then just make that same journey and hit up all these same places,
Yeah, that would be a great way to go about it. Yeah.
Is it sold in the travel guides section?
I think Amazon might have it listed in travel. Yeah, as one of its categories. Yeah.
Was your brother with you at all these stops, or just was it you for some of them, or?
Not at all of them. So yeah, when we moved, when my wife and I moved back from Boston to California, my wife flew back home to take the bar exam a little bit ahead of time, and so my brother flew out to drive back with me in a U-Haul, and so we made a lot of stops together, including places like Old Forge in Danville and the Brew Kettle in Cleveland, Ohio, as well as Nebraska Brewing Company in Nebraska.
Well, so basically all three of those places are right on Interstate 80. So
yeah, exactly.
That makes it easy for you. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I was reading another interview online with you, and you were talking about how your original plan for the book was almost like a road trip. Your brother and you trekking across the country.
Yeah.
But it's sort of with the publishing company is kind of changed into a different structure.
Right. Yeah, and essentially the themes of the book didn't change at all. I wanted to show the sort of community and the collaboration that exists in the craft brewing scene. But what did change a lot was the narrative structure. And so, I'm a journalist by trade. I work for a paper out here in Santa Barbara, the Santa Barbara News Press. And so it was really more about playing to my strengths as opposed to trying to tell this story of my brother and I, this sort of narrative, which I thought was fine, but I think the publisher saw that I had strength in another area, and so we went that direction instead.
Yeah, and I think it makes for a stronger book, too, to do that,
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So you said the impetus was the book was you kind of realizing that there was more to the story than just the 1,200 words you were getting in the interviews and stuff like that. What was the most eye-opening thing, or what did you learn the most throughout the process of writing this book?
Well, I always say this. So I think those are probably two different questions, but I'll start. The first one that I found to be the most eye-opening thing was just how accessible everybody was in the industry. It was super easy to get interviews, to get time to talk to people. I'm talking about Jim Cook from Boston Beer Company. He was busy, but he had time to speak with me on the phone. Same thing with Greg Cook and Ken Grossman. All these guys that you'd think would be just unreachable, especially for a first-time author. It really wasn't any problem. They called me on my cell phone and had a nice conversation. So it was amazing that these heavyweights were so easy to get a hold of. But I think the one thing that I kept seeing and kept noticing from everybody was they all love their jobs. The brewers and brewmasters. I don't know how many people told me, but just about all of them said those exact words. I love my job. I'd rather do nothing else.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a quote. I think was from your friend from what was that? See, I have it highlighted here. I think he was telling you that his uncle told him that and he says something about the good thing is that I don't have to spend any money on beer, like working in a brewery.
Oh, I don't know if I lost the feed.
We heard you.
Okay,
Oh,
Yeah,
if you
so
just-
there's a part that you say in the book, like I think was Andres his name.
Yeah, Andres Vedis, yeah.
Yeah, and he says that he's talking about working in a brewery, and he says the good thing is that I don't have to spend any more money on beer. The bad thing is that I don't have any more money for beer.
Yeah. It was great. That's where I got my chops kind of in the pro brewing world, was at Blue Hills Brewing in Massachusetts. And I don't want to act like I'm a serious pro brewer. I did it for 2 summers basically, but it was great to get my feet wet and really learn the ins and outs there. And Andres, during the time, the brewer and owner there, one of the owners, he wasn't taking home any money for the first couple of years. I mean, it was all going back into the company. And so anything, whenever he had a party or wanted to drink beer, he was drinking his own beer. So he would always ask me when I came in, he's like, hey, had any good beers lately? And so I would be the one bringing in the different beers from different parts of, if I was out working somewhere or something, I'd bring in some new beers for him.
Cool. I like the, like you were talking about how he's a huge fan. I think it's the Golding hop.
Yeah.
And one of our other group members, she's not here tonight, Ashley, she homebrews as well. And that's one of her favorite hops to use. She's a big fan of that style of hop.
Yeah,
hops and popsicles.
Yeah, I've gotten into it as well too. I think it rubbed off on me. It's a great hop, and one of the things I like about it too is it's not Cascades. Not that there's anything wrong with Cascades, but they're just so ubiquitous that you taste them everywhere. So it's nice to try something a little different every once in a while.
I think it's so the fact that these guys were so accessible for you when you were trying to write a book. It speaks to how craft beer is it's really a community. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, first time author, and you're getting telephone interviews with Jim and Greg and Ken, and I mean that's amazing. And these guys are all people who promote craft beer at its highest level, and they were willing to sit down and give you the time of day. That speaks to what brings us all together as it relates to craft beer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these guys are figureheads for a reason. And first of all, they make amazing beer, and they've been making it for a long time, and they've done a ton for our community. And so, yeah, the fact that they're willing to take time out of their very busy days and chat with me for a half hour to a couple hours, depending on who it was really appreciated and remarkable. I mean, in Santa Barbara, I'm a sports writer, and I've had much harder times trying to get in touch with like the head of the local high school football organization, or I shouldn't say local, the California high school football, the CIF. It was tough. Like there was a lot more hoops to jump through to speak with him than to speak with, Jim Cook.
Right.
And I think I hope that doesn't change, but I do know that as an industry grows and becomes more popular and the demands on those guys' time increases, it's going to be harder to get access to them to talk to them. So actually, on that same subject, that's probably what was behind Sam Calagioni's move to step back from the CEO role there at Dogfish Head this last week, was to be able to be accessible to promote craft beer and their company instead of always making the decisions and signing the checks and stuff. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and this is not a knock on Sam, who is obviously a good businessman, but when you get to a certain point, there are probably better people to run the business. And so it's not like he's going away and it's not going to be he's certainly going to be the one with the ultimate say on things there, but it makes sense, just at the same point when you get to, like, you look at Lagunitas, Tony McGee is not the main brewer anymore there, and that's not to say Tony is not a great brewer, it's just they've grown kind of beyond, and he's grown the company beyond where he can be the only guy in charge. And so the smart brewers know when it's time to bring in people who are perhaps better than them at certain areas.
Got to put the ego to the side.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, or stop growing. Those are your options. So.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what's next? I mean, first, anybody who's listening, I think we've teased you enough. I think we've piqued your interest enough. Go out and get this book. It's on Amazon. It's a hardcover and a Kindle version of it. But get the book. Check it out. It's a good read, I promise you. What's next? What's in the chute? What are you working on now with St.Martens Press or on something else?
There's no books firmly in the works right now. There's a lot of ideas that are kind of fermenting and coming together. So there's always something next. There will be more books, but in the meantime, it's probably going back to writing magazine articles. And I got my day job, so I'm the beer columnist at Santa Barbara News Press as well. So I've been having a good time just working with the local beer scene, and then kind of pitching magazine stories here and there as well.
Well, cool. That's exciting. All right, guys, we're gonna move on to a little bit of news, a little bit of reviews and stuff around the world. Shawn's gonna stay here with us and comment and talk to things that we've seen. We probably have time. Charles, do you want to talk? He's gone. Never mind. I was gonna ask if he wanted to talk about this new show coming up on the Travel Channel, but we'll see if he comes back in a minute.
I'm here. Yeah, I'm here.
You want to talk about that? Or do we? Or
yeah, I'll mention it really quick. Yeah, Terry Johnson of Travel Channel. She runs, I think, she has her own travel website, and she's done a series of basically fall in the Finger Lakes. I'm up in the Finger Lakes, New York region, so she's came up last fall and went all over the area. It's like 11 episodes on travelchannel.com. So they're little webisodes. And one of them, she spent a day at Ithaca Brewery. So, I mean, you guys have all had Flower Power, so most of you anyway, which I don't know if you've ever had. Have you had that, Shawn?
Yeah, I had it when I was living out in Boston. It was available out there. So, yeah, it's a great beer. Yeah,
so it's a good little insight. They're like 5 minutes long, each little webisode, but it's a good little insight to Ithaca and the brewing. You get to see how they brew and behind the scenes and stuff. And it was good. She's a wine drinker, so for her it was a new experience to see a wine drinker being converted over to like specialty craft beers. So something to check out.
And she was enthusiastic about it. She wasn't. This isn't wine,
No, she was very enthusiastic.
I don't think that wine drinkers and beer drinkers got to be like enemies. You know what I'm saying? I applaud her. I applaud her for being open-minded enough to still be able to, enjoy craft beer.
I consider myself to be the bridge between the two worlds.
Nice.
Do you mix wine in your beer every once in a while, Lola?
No.
Please don't say yes.
What an idea, though. How could let's make a.
That's Dogfish Head 61, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do that. We've got a couple brewers out here that are doing it. Firestone Barrel Works has been doing that. They released a beer called Feral Vinifera out of their Barrel Works project just a couple weeks ago. That was fermented with, I always forget. I know Orange Muscat was one of the grapes. They did 3 different grapes. And then Figaro Mountain, which is another California brewery, has a beer and wine side project that's pretty rad. So we're right out in the heart of wine country.
Brewers using wine barrels,
Yeah.
Yeah, put a Flemish in a wine barrel.
Wasn't that in Ghostbusters where you said cats and dogs living together, beer and wine being fermented together? I think so.
Yeah, there's a lot of beer with great must in it and stuff like that, but there's a difference between getting your IPA and then pouring some cab into it.
Yeah.
It's 2 different things, man.
No, they don't mix well together.
Yeah. Well, I was never a big cider fan, but I can appreciate them now as well too. So I guess maybe wine would be the next way to venture towards fermented drinks, but so I don't know. Maybe we'll do a wine show. We'll get a wine person on here.
Jamie, we were in Total Wine and we were looking at the $4,000 wines. She was telling me this is hand-blown glass, and they only make this once every 20 years, and the king spits in it, and all this stuff. I don't know. She was saying all this stuff, and I was like, where's the $14 wine?
Back to Charles's topic. Is this the same web series that TravelChannel.com has, where it's a totally different one?
It is.
Totally different. Yeah, it's Terry Johnson did her own entire web series for them.
So Travel Channel is kind of bringing out their beer roots, man. That's the second time they've done one of these.
Yeah, and we just need to get Anthony Bourdain like at a brewery or something now.
You probably liked it. I saw him drink absinthe. That was painful and weird.
Well, anybody who drinks
travel channels is that they have a lot of strings with, we don't want to say names, but there's strings of groups that have no interest for craft beers, and that's why I have Esquire is the no channel. They don't have that yet, and they're being able to do things like
I like Esquire.
Dogs,
Yeah. All right, we're gonna load up here. I've got a bit of a review of the week. We're gonna do another video review of the week. This week it's coming from the EBBB guys, Erie Better Beer Bureau. I can't believe I got that all out. That was impressive. And these guys they do YouTube beer reviews. If you haven't subscribed to these guys yet or seen these guys, it's 4 guys from Erie, Pennsylvania, and they get big beers, they get small beers, and they sit and they talk about them. There's 4 of them, and they're not all 4 of them aren't in every review, but this one I believe's got Dave, Maury, and Mark. Those 3 guys in here with it, and they review. I think, Gil, you drank this last week on one of our other hangouts, but they reviewed Avery's Pumpkin, and this is a pumpkin ale from Avery, bourbon barrel aged in Kentucky bourbon barrels. And well, I guess there's just really not much more I can do than play it. So this is about a minute of the audio from their from that. So hang on a second.
Holy crap. Talk about an assault of the senses.
Yeah.
I get booze, I get sweetness, I get pumpkin spices. More so than
I
on
get
the aroma.
Cinnamon. There's still a pumpkin flesh.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. It's all there.
And let's be honest,
Wow.
It is not short on bourbon.
No.
I mean, I get pumpkin flesh, I get tons of cinnamon, I get a ton of bourbon. And I'll tell you, for 17.22%, this thing is dangerously smooth.
It's
Yes, it is.
warming, though.
You get a
it's
warming, but but the actual flavor,
It's not,
the flavor, you don't get the 17.2 at all.
you want something to warm you up this fall, order one of these.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
And share it.
Yeah.
Oh,
All right, so that was 17.22% of pumpkin bourbony goodness, I guess. So, Gil, how do you drank this? Has anybody else had this?
I didn't share it.
You didn't share it.
You saw how I ended up.
Was that the night you were
You
on the
shared it
floor?
with the toilet.
Yeah. I think the thing I enjoy beer that have bourbon flavoring in it. This one would scare me a little bit just because it sounds like it's more bourbon than beer. But these guys, they were enthusiastic about it. They said the other flavors were there to come through. Would you agree with that, Gil? It wasn't just bourbon.
Yeah, it's one of those things that just work. It just work. If you like big beers, that beer is the pumpkin just. It's something else to add to the beer. It's just a great beer. They got that right.
Yeah,
And I had a beer today. It was Lexington Brewing Company. It was a Kentucky Bourbon Barrel Pumpkin Ale, and you'd be surprised how well bourbon plays with like pumpkin pie spices. I was amazed.
Interesting.
Yeah. Is that the brewery, Randy, that just has bourbon everything? They have the bourbon Kentucky Bourbon Ale and the Kentucky Bourbon everything.
The problem is
I think so.
they just show the cask to the beer. That's everybody complain about.
Yeah, or they blend something into it.
Doesn't seem very long.
That Kentucky, it's owned by Alltech, which is a sort of just a huge conglomerate there in Lexington, Kentucky, that does all kinds of things, a lot of stuff in the horse industry, and so yeah, they really play up the Lexington bourbon angle of it, and a lot of their beers have a lot of bourbon in them, or at least a lot of bourbon notes from the barrels.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's our review of the week. So we'll put up a link to the. It's only a 4 or 5 minute review, and I mean the faces these guys make when it's worth it. I mean it makes me want to drink this beer for sure. But we're going to move on to another bourbon beer, and this is going to be our special release note of the week. Gil did a little research, and I think he talked to somebody at Goose Island too. So what did you dig up?
I called Goose Island. Well, as everybody knows, it's Black Friday, coming on the 28th, right? And then. We'll see lines of people for the 50 year of Bourbon County Stout, and they showed their lineup is actually quite interesting. They have the Bourbon County Brand Stout, which there's
Yeah.
normal stout. They're proprietors. They have proprietors here, and they are doing. It's a second winter release for that. It will have a syrup that they made with the vanilla sugar, which vanilla sugar is just nothing more than unrefined sugar, and coconut water, cinnamon. I think it's cassia bark that they call it, and cocoa nibs.
And I'm sorry, and that is not a beer. That is something else they're making.
That is the beer. That is the beer. That's Bourbon County Proprietors.
Proprietors. All right. Okay.
Yes. Sorry, my pronunciation is not very good. And what did that? You know what they did with this beer? They just gave a mason jars with a Bourbon County stout to their brewers, and they took home and they said just put stuff on it, right? And so they got about 45 different variations of that, and they decided for those 4 main ingredients for that beer, which is it's pretty interesting how they decide to do that.
Yeah.
That's
the kind of homework I want. Here's 4 jars of our stout. Go find something that tastes good and put it in.
Yeah, the problem with their proprietors edition, it only distribute in Chicago. No other place.
Yeah, but that's what beer trading's for, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's I think that's going to be 14%, which is not a small beer. I could drink that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Then they have the barley wine. I think the barley wine, it's beer that I really like it. And what they do, the barley wine is the one that they reuse the Bourbon County Stout barrels. So they put the barley wine in there. So it's actually it's actually the beer that they don't use the bourbon barrel. They actually do rye whiskey barrels for that. That's the only beer they have that doesn't use that, and that's coming in a 4-pack, 12 ounce. And they say that's going to be a little more on the dark fruit tones this year.
Yeah, it was awful. I mean, not awful. It was awfully coconutty and vanilla last year, which is right in my wheelhouse. So I really enjoyed. I think I enjoyed the barley wine more than I did the stout last year. But
yeah, I still have.
Yeah, I can see it right. I see it right there. You lock your door, Gil. I know where you live.
I know there's a lot of stuff going. There are different opinions about Goose Island right now, but independent, what do you think about them? The Bourbon County series is just an amazing beer.
Yeah. And what did you see? You found something about what was that about the barrels? What was that? Something about they picked the barrels?
Brett Porter, he said that they are picking for the Bourbon County Stout, they go and look barrel per barrel. They handpicked each barrel to use for that, which it's
that's a lot of barrels. I don't know. Maybe they're letting like the interns pick them. I don't know, but I don't know. That's a huge investment of time. So I guess.
So they have their coffee. It's again is another annual release. What they do with the coffee, they just use a different coffee every year, and I think a different coffee infusion. And they're using a Ziricana from Rwanda this year, also coming in a 4-pack.
They're coming in 4-packs, but we're gonna have to buy them as singles at our bottle shops because they're gonna want to sell them $8 a bottle or something.
Right. And then the vanilla, the vanilla rye. That's the one I'm very excited about. It's one of their beers that I didn't have it. So it's the first time they're actually returning a beer with no different. They brewing exactly the same beer again.
Yeah.
Which is the first for their bourbon stout series.
The vanilla and the vanilla rye those will be bombers though, right? I think.
Right, 22 ounces. And actually, I said it wrong. The vanilla rye is the only beer they make that is not on bourbon barrel.
I got
you. It's not on a whiskey rye barrel.
Rye
whiskey. And and the barley wine is the one that they reuse Bourbon County Stout barrel. So they will do the Bourbon County Stout, and then the next time what they do, they put the barley wine on that barrel, so you get all those flavors. So that's our highlight review for the week. Look forward to it, and lines are going to grow. What they told me is that the reason they do the release on Friday night on the Black Friday is because they said people stands outside of stores and stuff on the Black Friday. Why they don't stand outside of a brewery or a bottle shop for a change?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going out at 4 o'clock in the morning. I got to get in line. Wait for the Goose Island truck to show
for
up.
a chair.
Yeah. Well, Gil, thanks for doing the research on that and digging that stuff up. It's like there again, it goes back to what Shawn was saying. It's always nice when you call a brewery and they talk to you, they give you information instead of just, So that was good work there, Gil.
Let me just quickly give you the city is going to be Boston, Chicago, Jacksonville, Dallas, Los Angeles, New York, Philadelphia, Phoenix, and San Francisco are going to have the release.
Are they having like release events or what?
Yeah, those are the cities that are going to have the Black Friday that you can go online and wait.
I gotcha. All right, cool. All right, well, then I guess my Total Wine or whatever, I'll get it a week later or a few days later or something. So who knows? But it's one I look forward to, and I'm building I've got 3 years of a vertical going, so I'll add to it this year too. Another releases here, we've got Five Rabbits from Chicago and Cigar City from Tampa are doing a collaboration El Bizarron. It's a porter bruised with caramelized plantains, so caramelized bananas in a beer. It's coming out here this week. Firestone Walker Barrel Works has got El Gordo American Ale. It's a blend of a American wild red ale and a saison. Have you had that? Wait, it's not. Oh, mid-November.
No, it's mid-November.
Yeah, that's not quite out yet. Yeah, they're coming out with that and slow ambic.
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
We have an cider here.
Well, this El Gordo is going to have pumpkin and walnuts and then age it in an oak barrel. So that sounds like a pretty interesting beer too. So, and just at that right time of the year for all that kind of stuff. Mid-November is a great time.
And it's very impressive that they actually doing this in November. A beer with pumpkin that is not coming out in October.
Not away. Yeah, they get a little more.
August.
They do what they want. There's nothing that Firestone makes that doesn't sell. So who cares about seasons for them? Wicked Weed in Nashville is doing a Briars and Brett from their Terra Locale series. It's a farmhouse ale aged in gin barrels with blackberries. It's just out this week. New Belgium's got Frambozen Holiday Beer out next week. I wish Alan was here to talk about that. I don't know about that. Stone's got their smoked porter with chocolate and orange peel. That came out last week. Santa Fe, New Mexico Brewing. They've got their black IPA. Their release party is next Saturday, November the 1st. So that is something I'd stand in line for that too. We've had that before. Boris passed that around. That was pretty delicious. Hoppin' Frog from Akron, Ohio has got King Goza Home. It's a 6% Goza, coriander, and sea salt coming out next week. Anybody heard anything else about any other releases it's worth mentioning?
The Firestone Walker, since you mentioned them, they're coming out with their 18th anniversary on Saturday.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's always a winner.
Yeah, they don't disappoint either. So.
No.
And Randy pointed out that plantains and bananas are different. Thank you, Randy.
Yeah.
No problem.
Thank you.
They're the same family, though.
They are in the same family. I think
it's like Gil and I are both humans.
Yes. But I'm prettier.
Gil is pretty, huh? All right. Moving on. Tennessee's got a Cigar and Brew Fest in Jackson, Tennessee on the 25th. Tallahassee's got a Brew Fest. That's October 25th. Austin Beer Week is the 24th through the 2nd, so that's going on. Detroit Beer Festival, Detroit, Michigan, the 24th and 25th. Blacksburg Brewdoo. Doug was here and couldn't come back or something. Blacksburg, Virginia on the 25th. And Yorktoberfest. York is having an Oktoberfest late in the month on the 25th. So, hey, Gil, that's pretty close to you, isn't it?
York is a 35-minute drive from you.
Yeah, there you go. And somebody's gonna have to go to drive you home. So, but that really is all I've got for this week. Anything else festival-wise? What about you out there, Shawn? Is Firestone doing a festival?
Firestone's having a release party, and Figaro Mountain, the brewery I mentioned earlier, they're also having a real ale festival this Saturday as well that I'll be at. I'll actually be signing books there at the Real Ale Festival in Buellton, California.
I've actually had Figaro Mountain before.
Yeah, I like their stuff a lot.
Yeah.
All right, so go out and get a beer, and then get a book, and get Shawn to sign it. And if you can't make it to that festival, hit Amazon. It's pretty cheap. It's a pretty good read, and we're glad to have him on as our guest. So thanks again, Shawn, for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Well, good. And really the only other thing we needed to cover was no guest next week. We're going to do a regular show next week, so going to be just the panel. We'll have some new news to cover and all that kind of fun stuff. So really, just until then, I guess everybody should go out, get some good friends, get some great beer, and mind those P's and Q's.
Nice.